Hello and welcome everybody to your AEW Revolution 2021 coverage podcast here on Pierce the Canvas. I, as always, am Pierce. Thank you for stopping by, listening to the podcast over here. And what a crazy show we had last night. Of course, it was the big John Moxley versus Kenny Omega exploding barbed wire death match for the AEW Championship main event, which we don't really need to beat around the bush. It was the finish of the match was a complete failure. Unfortunately, they just couldn't pull off the final explosion properly. Just you're probably already hearing it everywhere. Pretty much just a Gilbert effect in the ring. You just had like little sparklers. I guess there was one cool explosion. Like I think at the very end there was like these two like really cool looking explosions. Maybe if you caught like those two explosions from the right camera angle, you could have made it look a lot less embarrassing. But yeah, as far as that goes, I guess the wrestling in the match was great. Some of the effects used throughout were also acceptable, but the end of the match was just a complete embarrassment, unfortunately. And I guess depending on who you are, the reveal of the big signee to AEW, the big new signed talent, being Christian Cage. I know a lot of people who are not so happy about this, but I think overall it's cool, man. Like it's fine. AEW can have a miniature sized version of WWE's Edge story, I guess. He could have a big comeback and have a successful farewell to his career rather than just having to be sidelined due to injuries. So I'm happy for the guy. Like I'm over the moon for Christian, but do I really think it's the highest caliber star that we could have gotten on contract? Maybe it is the highest caliber we could have gotten, but it's definitely not. It's no CM Punk, it's no Brock Lesnar, it's no John Cena. But hey, like as long as we're gonna get some good wrestling out of it, that's what matters most. And I could at least guarantee that. Like I really do think we're gonna get some great matches here out of Christian. But those are pretty much the two lowest things on the show for me. Everything else was pretty damn good. We had the Young Bucks, yeah, versus MJF and Chris Jericho for the AEW Tag Team titles. The match was pretty damn, it was a pretty good match. I think as good as it could have been, really. Especially with the Styles clash between Young Bucks and MJF and Chris Jericho. I think they pulled it off real well. We had the women's championship match again. After the tournament had happened, the winner of the tournament having been Ryo Mizunami. As well as we had the face of the ladder match, which we also had a mystery opponent for, but I don't have such a problem with who the mystery opponent was there, which was Ethan Page. Because they didn't overhype it. They didn't tell me it's going to be this world-class, whatever, top-notch wrestler guy. They never really said anything at all, to be honest. They just said there's a mystery opponent. So I was okay with that. And, of course, we had Sting's first match in about 5 years. And yeah, that was definitely the show stealer for me, the Sting match, and I'm glad it was, because the Sting match could have so easily been, a disaster or just didn't look any good, but I think it was the best thing on the show, and we'll just get right into it. So they opened up the show with a graphic in memoriam for Jim Crockett Jr., which had eerily passed away around the time that the Tully Blanchard FTR match was happening on Dynamite this Wednesday. So, we had most of the horsemen in the arena at the time. Even Arn Anderson came out at the end of that match just to pay homage. And just shortly thereafter, one of the most important reasons for the Four Horsemen existing, Jim Crockett Jr., had passed away. So, all the best to his family and everything else, and rest in peace to Jim Crockett Jr. And I noticed Jim Ross's voice was kind of off, like throughout parts of the show, especially at the beginning here. We just got right into the first match, Chris Jericho and MJF versus the Young Bucks for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. So the Bucks immediately run wild on the heels in the match. They get stereo sharpshooters early on until a rope break. Bucks got an assisted corner swanton for a near fall. The heels got a delayed vertical suplex, kind of double team style suplex for a 2 count. Matt was able to DDT both guys before a hot tag, which had Nick Jackson landing a destroyer on MJF for a near fall. AEW loves these destroyer and near falls, man. I don't know if I like them so much, though, because they always look so incredibly devastating, but they're never the finish. They're always, they kind of made the destroyer look weak over the years because of that, but whatever, it led to a near fall. The Bucks got a tag team, like overhead neck breaker. Like one of them would hold the opponent in electric chair position, the other one would like jump over, and it's kind of like a neck breaker style move. I think there was one point Chris Jericho did a tombstone on Matt, reversing a Meltzer driver, locked walls on Nick. Matt tags in, but also gets locked in the walls of Jericho until he manages to escape. MJF caught Matt in a powerbomb for a near fall. Another Meltzer driver attempt, but Chris Jericho is able to codebreaker Nick. MJF rolls up Matt for a near fall. Wardlow had Aubrey's attention at one point. Jericho hits Matt with his bat. MJF lands a heat seeker for a near fall. The Young Bucks stereo crossbody dived onto the heels. BTE trigger, but MJF is able to break the pin. Young Bucks super kick the shit out of MJF. They're literally just super kick after super kick after super kick. And, JR couldn't be more happy because there's literal slob being knocked out of MJF's mouth. So you just hear JR like a little girl, it's a slobber knocker. It's a real slobber knocker. He's just like over the world for that. And then they were able to land their Meltzer driver for the win. And so to retain the World Tag Team Championships, congrats to the Young Bucks. Definitely shouldn't be losing it to MJF and Chris Jericho. Didn't they already lose at last Revolution against singles guys? Can't do that again. So good match, good outcome. Pretty happy with that. Next up we had the Tag Team Casino Battle Royal. The winner earning a Tag Team World title shot. And the teams enter every 90 seconds, I believe was what the rule was. This was all really confusing. The match started off with Dustin and QT against 5 and 10. And soon in, Alan Angels got thrown out after QT Marshall made his way out. I'm not going to go through every single name in elimination just because that would be very mundane. At one point, QT Marshall threw out the Gun Club. The Gun Club ended up in the ring. And then they did a small little angle after that. Dustin Rhodes was really pissed off at QT Marshall because apparently Gun Club is a part of the Nightmare family. So Dustin was like, what the hell? Why are you throwing them out? Like, right now, dude. They're a part of our stable. We can't be doing this stuff. QT doesn't seem to give a shit. He literally just leaves the ring and eliminates himself. I didn't catch whether he left the ring like a normal exit of the ring, or did he jump over the rope? Because isn't it over the top rope? However, I didn't catch it, so I can't really say it was a botch or anything like that. But if he had just gone through the middle rope like you normally do to exit, then that wouldn't have counted as an elimination. But I don't actually remember if he went over the top or not. He might have. Bear Country was also in this match. They got some eliminations. I think it was Pillman and Garrison. Jurassic Express come out. Luchasaurus throws out Cesar Minoni, who is partnered with Pretty Peter Avalon. Jungle Boy just threw out Santana and Ortiz. I've talked about it on the stream before. I think those guys are just like criminally underrated, and they get treated like this. I mean, just getting thrown out like not too long into the match didn't do them any favors. Marco Stunt just came out of nowhere and barely, Hurricanrana, barely got Evil Uno out, but he ended up falling off the apron and being eliminated as well. Butcher and Blade came out, as well as Private Party, and SCU as well. And one thing, just to spoil it, because I'm not sure if I wrote the specific elimination, but SCU did get eliminated, and I was under the impression that the next time they lost, maybe it's just a pin or submission loss, maybe Battle Royal doesn't count, but next time they lost, they were going to disband, and as far as I'm concerned, they, spoiler alert, they did not win this match. But I guess you could let it slide if it's a battle royal. Bear Country threw out Luchasaurus. Butcher threw out Bear Country. Ray, Phoenix, and Pac come out. They eliminated a couple of guys. I might have gotten some of those eliminations confused there. This is just too hard to keep up with, but Silver and Reynolds came out. Ray Phoenix eliminated Christopher Daniels, so there was that. I'm not sure if I got Kazarian's elimination. Oh, no, yeah, I did. So Kazarian eliminated Alex Reynolds. Pac threw out Kazarian, so there you go. So they did lose this match. John Silver, Pac, Phoenix, and Jungle Boy at this point are the only ones remaining in the ring. John Silver kicks the shit out of Pac's chest. Pac lands a German suplex. Ray Phoenix ran a tight rope to do his kick and take out Silver, get him eliminated. Jungle Boy is able to eliminate Pac. Ray Phoenix and Jungle Boy remain engaged in a chop fest. Ray gets a tope. Obviously, he didn't go over the top rope, so it didn't count as elimination. Ray attempts a springboard. Jungle Boy super kicks him in midair, lands a poison rana. Ray Phoenix landed his roundhouse kick and clotheslined Jungle Boy for the win. So Ray Phoenix and Pac will challenge for the World Tag Team titles coming soon. So really looking forward to that. That's going to be an amazing match. And I would just straight up like Ray Phoenix and Pac to win the titles, man. I think Pac has been titleless too long in AEW now. So this has to be great. I'm looking forward to it. So Dasha's backstage with Big Show hyping up the AEW Dark Elevation. Elevation. I wrote Evolution. Everybody says it wrong. I'm not the only one. AEW Dark Elevation teases the new arrival, which I already told you is Christian. And Big Show basically, I'm calling him Big Show. His name's Paul White. Basically says that whoever's about to be signed, no one can outwork them. And so, little noteworthy that Al Snow and Diamond Dallas Page were in attendance, so there's a lot of pages and cages on this match, or on this show, sorry, which was pretty hilarious. You had Brian Cage, you had Christian Cage, you had Diamond Dallas Page, you had Adam Page, you had Ethan Page. What the hell fucking shit is this? Anyway, Ryo Mizunami, we see like a little promo of hers on video. There was a full video package for the Women's Championship match, and Ryo Mizunami, I didn't realize that she apparently retired from wrestling and basically said, I came back to fight Hikaru Shida for the AEW Championship. So that's, kind of cool little backstory. I still stand by what I said on Wednesday, that they could have put a much bigger match up instead of Ryo Mizunami. To be honest, I was way more impressed with Veni. It could have been Thunder Rosa, it could have been Maki Ito in this position, or just somebody a little more over. But we'll talk a little bit more about that after I cover the match here. So, of course, in the match, Rio's doing her usual antics, like the repeated chop spots, and she's doing this, rope mime kind of thing, which just will always make her opponent look stupid, because the opponent just stands in the corner acting groggy, and it's always at the beginning of the match, so it's how are you that groggy, 80 seconds into the match, and they're just standing there while Rio's doing her spots. Shida got a sit-down pile driver on Mizunami on the stage. Mizunami and Shida in a strike exchange starts headbutting Shida, repeatedly, craziness, before landing a spike pile driver for a near fall. Both women are no-selling clotheslines, knees, and forearms, until Shida takes Mizunami down finally. Mizunami takes down Shida for another strike exchange, lands her leg drop finisher from the top rope for a near fall. Shida lands a German, Mizunami clubs her from behind. Shida gets up and lands a Falcon Arrow, knees and punches Mizunami in the face, does her reverse running knee strike, picks her up for one more Falcon Arrow, all that for just a near fall. Shida landed a corkscrew knee strike for the win right at the end. And then a short post-match attack from Nyla Rose with Vicky Guerrero on both women. Shida stops Rose from powerbombing Mizunami. Eventually, Britt, Baker, Maki Ito, and Reba come out to beat up the baby faces. Maki Ito is biting Mizunami's hand. Maki Ito's she really is just the cutest. She just looks like a cartoon. like everything she does, and she's just like all animated, biting Mizunami's hand. It just made me laugh. And then eventually Thunder Rosa, maybe somebody else came out for the save. Unfortunately, like my brain only processed Thunder Rosa coming out. Maybe it was just her. Um, but yeah, like I said, the match was fine. It wasn't that fantastic or anything. Like most of these spots that I wrote down took place like minutes and minutes into the match. There's a lot of slowness, and like I said, I think we could have just had maybe a bigger name up against Hikaru Shida for the championship. Um, and just by the end, like honestly, it just felt like this whole tournament was just like kind of a waste, because it's like Ryo Mizunami just got beat, and we'll probably see her like one or two more times, just because she's probably not coming to America to quarantine and then going straight back to Japan. So we'll probably see her a couple more times, but ultimately we're probably not even going to see her again. We'll probably forget about her because she's going to go back to Japan, and I don't think she's just going to be hippity hopping and back and forth unless they do more of these Japanese women shows, which I'm all for. But yeah, it didn't feel like a great end to this whole story, with the tournament and the championship match. I don't think anything much is going to come out of this. Maybe a couple tag team matches. So Alex Marvez is with Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor, but Miro comes in quick for the attack with Kip Sabian. So basically Miro just takes out the baby faces before they could even do their entrances for the match. Oh, and Miro threw Chuck Taylor's head through a door's glass window. Some doors have like glass windows. He just like whips Chuck Taylor's head right through. And then that starts the match. Miro and Kip Sabian come out. Miro drags Chuck Taylor out, and he's busted open. Miro gets a mic and is taunting Chuck Taylor. I actually wrote down Charles. I'm still used to Charles. Mad that Chuck didn't forfeit this match. Tells him to forfeit, puts the mic to his mouth. Chuck says, "Forget it, man. Ring the damn bell." So Miro attacks and stomps a hole in the corner. Kip lands a shotgun dropkick. And by the way, Orange Cassidy didn't come out with Chuck Taylor because he also got his ass kicked backstage. Orange Cassidy eventually makes it out, but he's selling that he's injured, and he even like collapses on the stage. As one of the heels are approaching him, he suddenly kips up and takes out Miro with an orange punch. That's what it's called? Yeah, I think so. Chuck tags in Cassidy, tope, and diving DDT to Kip Sabian. Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy do like double teamed beach break on Kip. Chuck Taylor lands a pile driver, but Miro's able to break the pin. Kip accidentally knocks Penelope Ford off the apron. That's actually not right. I did write that, but it was actually, I think Miro pushed Orange Cassidy or one of them, maybe Chuck Taylor, into Penelope Ford, and so she flies off the apron. And it was deliberate. Like, Miro meant to do this. So he's just using Kip Sabian's wife as his weapon. Cassidy does his kicks on Miro until Miro roundhouse kicks his head off, but Cassidy does his Slumdog Millionaire. Miro roundhouse kicks Cassidy's head off again, locks in the game over on Chuck Taylor for the win. So they made Miro look like a beast. That's what this whole thing was about. But it didn't do the show much favors. I didn't think this needed to be on here, really. This was pretty Dynamite-esque. Like, it was fine. It was just like an enhancement match for Miro, kind of, is what it felt like. So we're going to hear from Chris Jericho and MJF next up with Alex Marvez. Of course, they're pissed off that they lost tonight. Jericho is mad at Marvez because Marvez said that they failed at winning the championships. And Chris Jericho said there will be an Inner Circle war cancel to make some changes. And you could see MJF's facial expressions, and he's like looking at Jericho like he fucking hates him now. So MJF basically says, yep, we're going to need to make some changes. And so ultimately implying that we're probably going to be kicking Chris Jericho out of this group because he's not carrying the weight at this point. So we'll see how this unfolds, I guess, starting on Wednesday, the Inner Circle War Council. All these Inner Circle conferences, huh? But next up, we got Big Money Matt Hardy versus Hangman Adam Page. A big money match. Winner earning their opponent's first quarter earnings for 2021. Match starts. Guys are fighting outside at the beginning. Hangman throws Matt over the barricade. Matt gets the upper hand and puts Hangman's hand behind steel stairs and kicks it. Crushes his hand. Hangman lands a Death Valley driver for a near fall. Matt Hardy lands a twist of fate ringside. Adam Page manages to just beat the 10 count. Matt got a middle rope German suplex on Adam for a near fall. Adam landed ringside a ringside moonsault and a diving crossbody for a 2 count. Matt landed a BT powerbomb for a near fall. After a quick strike exchange, Adam landed a Deadeye, but unfortunately, Private Party make their way out and distract the referee. Adam Page proceeds to take them out. Adam tries a buckshot, runs into a side effect, and Matt Hardy lands a twist of fate for a near fall. Private Party's about to interfere again, but who comes out but Adam's best friends, the Dark Order? They take out Private Party. They assist Hangman with landing a buckshot lariat for the win. So basically at one point I think Adam Page was about to do his buckshot lariat, but he got knocked off the apron. So the Dark Order guys crowd up and they catch him and they push him back on the apron. Adam Page flips over the rope, lands his buckshot, and again he won. So that was really cool, and I thought to, further establish the relationship between Adam Page and Dark Order. Which I guess at this point we could probably say confidently that he's going to end up being the leader of in some way, shape, or form. But it really does seem like -1 is the leader, so maybe it won't be so simple. We'll see how it goes. And during the post-match celebration, Dark Order brought some beers for Adam Page. So next up, we get a preview for the Face of the Revolution ladder match. This is involving Lance Archer, Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky, Penta El Zero Miedo, and Max Caster, as well as a mystery opponent. As I revealed earlier, the mystery opponent is the third page of the show, Ethan Page. And so it's a ladder match it's a qualifying match, ladder match, right? So they don't have a title suspended above the ring. They have a legit, like, Sonic the Hedgehog looking brass ring, like an actual brass ring above the ring. Just looks like a golden donut. But yeah, that's what they were going after. So, as I said, everyone made their entrances. The last one to make their entrance was Ethan Page, whose gimmick is all ego. That's his gimmick. I guess he's a heel. They said that he's a 2-time Impact, was it tag team champion or something? He's also a tag team champion in PWG. So in this match, Lance was quick to grab a ladder, took some guys out with it. Penta managed to take down Lance until Scorpio landed a German while Pentagon is holding a ladder. So the ladder just flies up above Penta's head. Max Caster called out Jack Evans at one point, who came out with a boombox. I think Anthony Bowens is injured, who is Max Caster's tag team partner, so they can't have him walk out with a boombox, I guess. So they had Jack Evans do it. So he came out with a boombox, but 10 was able to take out Jack Evans. Cody landed a disaster kick on him. Cody rejected a handshake from Ethan Page. Or I think it was the other way around, sorry. Ethan Page rejected a handshake from Cody. Takes him out with a ladder. Caster is beating Cody with a boombox. Jumps off the apron, dropping it right down on him. Penta ran off a ladder onto a bunch of dudes ringside. Lance Archer's about to pick up the ladder, but Ethan Page cutters him onto the ladder while he's holding it and starts crushing Archer between the ladder. Ethan launched Scorpio Sky onto the ladder with Lance still in between it. So bad day for Lance Archer in this case. Ethan traps Archer in another ladder. This time he stands the ladder up and sorry about that. And puts it atop Lance Archer. Climbs the ladder as well, but Pentagon backstabbers him off the ladder. Cody and Penta are on the apron where the ladder is set. So basically it's perched between the apron and the barricade. Penta lands a destroyer on the ladder. Doctors are checking on Cody after this spot, which is good. Now they're actually selling a destroyer, like it actually did some damage. Um, but the thing is, as well, that they mentioned is that Cody still has a bad shoulder, so they had to take him out of the match for a little while. And it was kind of awkward because they just walked him like right at the entrance of one of the tunnels. So for like 10 minutes he's gone, but you just see him standing there. You know, usually when a wrestler gets walked out of a match, they're backstage and they're not to be seen for like a whole bunch of time. But like Cody Rhodes was just standing there with like three officials just talking to him for like 10 minutes. Uh, Scorpio at one point is able to knock Caster off the top of a ladder. Scorpio climbs. Caster sets an even taller ladder next to his. Both climb up and engage in a strike exchange. Archer climbs Scorpio's ladder. Ethan climbs Caster's. Fight until they all get taken out. Scorpio and Penta are fighting on the ladders. Scorpio bites Penta's head, attempts a neck breaker off the ladder, but it was a bit botched. It didn't look great. Caster and Page are up top. Caster did a sunset flip to Ethan Page off the ladder. Sky slams Caster onto a ladder before killing him with a frog splash on top of the ladder. That was a great, picture-perfect frog splash. He, like, you could tell he laid it in. Like, he put all his body force into it. Archer rips Scorpio down from a ladder. Scorpio's on top. Archer knee strikes Scorpio, who falls through the perched ladder ringside. So he took a pretty big bump there. Cody returns to the match eventually, starts whipping dudes with his belt, runs wild on Ethan Page, and lands a crossroads. Cody climbs up the ladder in the corner. Archer fights him up top and superplexes him off the ladder. So Cody took some wild bumps in this match. Caster does his claim to fame elbow onto Cody's back off the ladder. Because I think Cody, after the superplex spot, he landed a bit too far for Caster to do his elbow drop. So Cody was literally like crawling, and then Caster did the elbow right onto his back. Penta and Caster fight up top on the ladder until Archer pushes it down, and he just starts running wild, choke slamming everyone in the match, except for Caster, who he landed a blackout to on a ladder. It was just like brutal, man. I would hate to take that finisher in any case, let alone on a ladder. So Ethan Page is trying to fight Archer off a ladder, throws him with a razor's edge to freaking Lance Archer. He's like twice his size. Jake Roberts gets in the ring and lands a discus lariat to Ethan Page. But Penta super kicked him. He didn't really lay it in too much, but still, man, like this guy has some serious health issues, so there's a reason for a little worry. Cody botched a cutter, climbs up a ladder. Penta gets him with a steel chair, but Sky's able to take out Penta with his own chair. Cody and Scorpio Sky fight on top of the ladder. Sky pushes Cody down and claims the brass ring for the win. So the next person to challenge for the TNT title will be Scorpio Sky. Fantastic. Really, it would be cool to see him as champion. Like, is it really time for Darby Allin to lose it? Maybe not, but they could do a bit of a program here between Darby Allin and Scorpio Sky, and they could make me want to see Scorpio win the championship. I already really like the dude. You know, I just don't know if it's time for him to beat Darby Allin for the championship, but we'll see what happens. So next up, we have Paul White revealing AEW's newest big signee, which actually Paul White wasn't even there. He didn't even make a... Oh, hello, All Elite Podcast. Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, so definitely Scorpio's getting a bit of a attitude change at this point. I think it really could be interesting seeing him against Darby. Like I said, like, if they just do it this Wednesday, like, oh, the main event Scorpio Sky versus Darby Allin, you know, I think they do have to work a program for a few weeks. So yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think that it will be a great match, a great program as well. They got to get Scorpio Sky over. He's one of the most underrated guys, underutilized guys in that whole company. I would even put Pentagon Jr. up there. Again, earlier I just mentioned that Santana and Ortiz are like criminally underutilized. So at least now they're going to utilize one of their underutilized guys being Scorpio Sky. Again, as I said, we moved into the segment revealing the big signee. Paul White didn't even make a physical appearance. They just had like a countdown on the screen, and then after the countdown, you see outwork everyone, and out comes Christian Cage, and signs a contract, and there you go. That's the big signee for AEW here at Revolution is Christian Cage. Which, hey, like, whether you like it or not, I do think we're going to get some great matches out of this guy. So I'm not too disappointed, but hey, it's no CM Punk, it's no Brock Lesnar, it's no John Cena. It is, after all, um, it's just Christian. I guess I said earlier that they could probably have their own version of like an Edge story, which is cool, whatever. Anyway, moving on, we got Sting and Darby Allin versus Ricky Starks and Brian Cage in a street fight. And this, in my opinion, stole the show. This was the best work that I saw all night. I guess the main event, like the work in the main event, was also really good, but this was just put together quite perfectly. So it was a cinematic style match. There's rumors that, yeah, it's going to be cinematic. And then we started hearing like, oh, well, Sting is doing some in-ring work, so maybe it's not going to be. But no, they went cinematic. However, it was maybe a little counterproductive in the sense that they had a ring for this cinematic match. And Sting could work. The guy can move. He can wrestle. He showed in this as well as during the hype that he could still wrestle. So, again, I think as far as me being a viewer, I thought this was quite perfect. But if you were in at the show, I would have been a bit disappointed, to be honest with you. It's like, this guy, like, we saw in this that he could work, so might as well just bring him live into the arena and have him work a match. But at the end of the day, I wasn't in the arena. I'm not one of those guys. I enjoyed what I watched here. So we see Starks and so Ricky Starks and Brian Cage enter like a really cool BMW. They enter that one promo where Sting was like bashing one of the windows. I think that was the same warehouse they were in. And so we see like a bunch of like druid, like Undertaker's druids. There's a bunch of like Sting versions of that, and they called them hoodlums. So they all come out after Darby and Cage get into the warehouse, um, and they like surround the ring with Starks and Cage in there. So Alan is skateboarding next to a car or a truck or something, and Sting is in the vehicle. They enter the warehouse with a whole bunch of those hoodlums, and again, as I said, the hoodlums surround the ring. Match starts. Sting is getting beat up in the corner by Starks. Cage powerbombs Hoodlum on the apron while beating up Darby Allin. Sting got a stinger splash on Starks. We got some cool cinematics. Like, there's this one point, I've never ever seen this in wrestling, but there's basically Ricky Starks and was it Brian Cage and Darby Allin? Well, whatever. It was like two guys were fighting in the ring. There's another two across the warehouse, and they did like this cool camera thing where they flew the camera over to the other two guys. It was kind of cool, like if you're into that stuff. And yeah, it was actually Cage and Allin who they zoomed into. So they're fighting at the back of the warehouse. Brian Cage throws Allin through like these doors. We go back to Starks and Sting. Sting is threatening to hit Starks with his bat, but he's like eventually just throws away the bat. He's like, all right, let's just fight. So they start going at it. And then we cut to a stairwell where Cage and Darby Allin are fighting, and Brian Cage literally picks up Darby Allin in a suplex position and starts walking up the stairs with him, and then drops him onto a trash can. Sting saves Darby Allin, and they start double teaming on Cage until Starks comes in and hits Sting with a mop and pushes this like big steel canister thing onto him. And Sting actually took like a bit of a fall during this. He like really hit his shoulder while falling on these filing cabinets. And yeah, All Elite Podcast, I did hear Darby like co-directed this thing. That guy, the guy's beating the shit out of himself like every week. He could eventually retire and become like a film director, so he's really good at this stuff. Yeah, I think it was him and Tony Khan had jointed for this and co-directed it. They both like had equal creative power. That's what you're going to see in AEW, right? You're going to see the talent really show their creative skills. So Cage attempts to hit Sting with a garbage lid. Sting's able to dodge, and Cage hits Starks with it. Cage is about to powerbomb Darby. Or actually, I think it was Sting sprays him with a fire extinguisher. Allen bashes Cage with a glass bottle. Both guys put Cage through a table. Allen climbs this pillar at one point in the warehouse, and you landed like a bit of a coffin drop onto Starks through some stuff. I don't even know what it was, just a bunch of warehouse stuff. He just jumps on him through. A mysterious giant masked man comes in. Who can it be? Of course it was Will Hobbs. There's no point of masking him. He takes out Allen. Hook and Cage trade shots on Allen as Hobbs is holding him. Cage and Hobbs throw Allen through a glass window. So one of the guys has Darby Allin's legs, the other guy has his arms, and they go back and forth, and whoa, they throw him right through this window, and it explodes. Cage takes Sting out with a shovel, and he's like hitting him with this shovel. I'm like, dude, hold back, man. This guy's 60-something years old. But he was hitting him with his shovel, repeated shots. But Sting manages to get his bat back, and he takes out Hook, Cage, and Hobbs. And then at one point, they cut suddenly. They didn't do like a suspenseful kind of thing. You just cut, and you see Darby Allin jumping off like 2 stories onto, I think it was Hook. I thought it was Ricky Starks at first. But yeah, he jumps onto, I believe it was Hook, off the like 2 stories through a bunch of, again, warehouse stuff, and you see it all collapse and explode. Starks speared Sting in the ring for a near fall. Starks is about to powerbomb Sting, but he reverses into a destroyer, which was kind of weird looking. Sting doing a destroyer. It was kind of like a destroyer, but kind of just like a pin as well. It was kind of awkward. But anyway, Sting's able to land his Scorpion Death Drop for the win. And yeah, like this thing up and down was very entertaining. There's obviously some debatable things. Like a lot of people will say that they don't like announcing during cinematic matches. They don't like things like music. The music definitely wasn't overbearing, but they did have a little background music. Like I thought it was fine, man. Like, and with these cinematic matches, right? We just started this pandemic era like a year ago. You kind of just got to roll with the punches and improvise, and I think they did a good job. I think they did all right. Some of the camera shots and the way it was shot was maybe a little too film-like. You would get an obscured view of some of the spots that might have looked cooler if they were just shot single shot instead of cutting between a whole bunch of cameras to make it look cinematic. But I overall would call this a success. I would say, and I've heard the comparison already, but I would say this was almost as good as the Undertaker match at WrestleMania, the Boneyard match. Yeah, that was pretty good, and this was pretty close to that. And now for the legendary main event of Jon Moxley versus Kenny Omega in an exploding barbed wire death match. I already prefaced with, how this went at the beginning of the show. But I don't want to undermine the work done in this match. I think that Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega had a pretty good death match. But of course the finish just, no pun intended, blew everything to smithereens. But hey, let's get into it. So, we go over the history of the rivalry, dating back from the first Double or Nothing, and then they eventually start describing the barbed wire deathmatch scenario. Again, we see Atsushi Onita, one of the pioneers of this match type, and he's describing what the match is, what it entails, so on and so forth. So to go over the rules real quick, the barbed wire is wrapped on the ropes of the ring, and each on 3 sides. So the part of the ring that's facing the stage isn't armed, so they could get into the ring. But the other 3 sides of the ring are armed, so if you get too close to them, explosion will go off and you'll land in barbed wire and everything. But then they also have landmines. So they had, I think, 2 sides of the ring. They had 2 landmines set up with a bunch of barbed wire, so they had explosives everywhere. So John Moxley makes his entrance, and he's wearing an Onita-inspired entrance gear, which is pretty cool. And he has a flask, so he's getting drunk before his match. What made me laugh out loud was seeing the referee in a hazmat suit with a face shield. It was like, that was great. And it's Bryce Remsburg. He's already kind of like a cartoony looking referee guy, so it was just funny seeing him in this hazmat suit. It kind of makes the entire thing just funnier. And of course, Don Callis joins commentary. So the match starts like every exploding barbed wire death match. Getting ready for this, I watched a few of the matches, and some of them are freaking great, man. But they all kind of start the same, which is a collar and elbow tie-up, and then they start trying to like push each other's faces into the explosives and everything. And I'm telling you, the suspense was like real. You're really just like on the edge of your seat, like, oh my god, who's gonna get blown up first? Like, what's gonna happen? So the guys eventually they make it out of the ring from the ropes toward the stage, so there's no explosion. And John Moxley gets his barbed wire baseball bat and starts and beats Kenny with it a little bit, but then he goes for a kendo stick and starts beating him with that. I'm like, why didn't you just use a barbed wire bat? Whatever. John is about to use his bat on Kenny, but Kenny throws a bunch of powder into Moxley's eyes, blinding him. This allows Kenny to throw Moxley into the explosion for a near fall. You ever think I would say that? An explosion for a near fall. That wasn't even the finish. Kenny beats on Mox with a kendo stick and a trash can. Kenny got a Kartoro Crusher on Moxley onto the trash can. This busts open Moxley, and this guy was bleeding way too much for this like one move. The guy was, Crimson Mask, and then it started wrapping around his head, like even on the back of his neck. The blood just going everywhere. I'm like, really, from landing on your face on the trash can? But hey, okay, whatever. Kenny locks a figure four on Moxley, but Moxley takes a barbed wire chair and is literally scraping Kenny's legs with it. I didn't mention, but both guys are in like full street fight gear. Kenny's wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Moxley's wearing a t-shirt and pants as well, to minimize some of the damage done. So Moxley runs to Kenny, who dodges, and this gets Moxley to crash into one of the barbed wire boards in the corner. I didn't mention that there's barbed wire boards in the corners too. They're not explosive though. So Moxley crashed into one of these boards, so he's stuck in all this barbed wire and crashes through this board. Kenny lands a moonsault for a near fall. Which, that in itself surprised me. I was like, oh my god, a wrestling move, wow. I guess, again, you did the Kataro Crusher earlier, but they did do some wrestling in this match. It wasn't pure garbage bullshit. They did do some wrestling. After the near fall from the moonsault, Kenny starts beating the crap out of him with the kendo stick, including just wailing him in the back of his head with it. Moxley manages to push Kenny into the explosions twice. Moxley throws Kenny into the other barbed wire board in the corner. Moxley's about to side slam Kenny on the barbed wire chair. Not sure if he succeeded with that. I don't know why I didn't write it down. Moxley wraps a barbed wire around his arm and lands a clothesline. It's just hilarious to me because the day before this pay-per-view, I was watching Chris Van Vliet, if you know that is the awesome YouTube interviewer guy. I think he also does it separately as a podcast, but he had an interview with Sabu, and he asked him what his what his worst injuries are, and he gave us two. I don't remember one of them, but the other injury that he said was the worst, and this is Sabu, this extreme wrestling legend, and he says that the worst injury he ever had was he got sliced on his arm with barbed wire and it tore open his bicep. So I was just thinking about that while John Moxley's wrapping barbed wire around his arm. I'm like, geez, man, you're just doing it voluntarily. Moxley went for a paradigm shift. Kenny pushes him into an explosion. Kenny's face took the brunt of the explosion, though, because he basically shoved him using his full body into the explosion. So they both got blown up on, but Kenny's face took the brunt of it. So he's pouring water all over his face to cool it down. And I could just say, at this point, that the explosions were not very believable. Even though I think the ring explosions looked alright, in the FMW, like original exploding barbed wire death matches, dude, you would see black spots forming on the wrestlers after the explosions. Like, they were really getting burned up and shit. While in this match, I think it was purely fake and, pyrotechnics, which is fine. We don't want to wish real pain on people, but I'm just saying, in the old matches, they really got burnt up on. So the guys at this point are on the apron, strike exchanging, trying to throw each other onto one of the ringside landmines that I was talking about. So Jon Moxley lands a paradigm shift through one of the ringside barbed wire boards, and this is the first, like, shitty explosion. So he lands through the board, and on either side of the board, which neither guys are even near, there's just, like, fire that flies up, and it's not even close to the wrestlers. So that was the first one where I was like, all right, this is not very believable. But this actually busted Kenny open. I don't think I've ever seen Kenny Omega cut himself, like do a gig on himself. I think this is the first time I ever saw it. So we got Kenny Omega Crimson masked. Moxley takes a barbed wire. He took the barbed wire from the board and starts punching Kenny in the face with the barbed wire. And at this point, there is a warning alarm for the final explosion to go off. John pile drives Kenny. This results in 2 near falls. Jon Moxley's trying to get the match over with because the big explosion's about to go off. So he's like trying to pin Kenny, but he keeps kicking out. And yeah, exactly, All Elite Podcast. One thing that I did hear from a few people who were at the show is that depending on where you were, the explosions actually look pretty damn good, because if you're from a certain angle, you can't necessarily see that the wrestlers aren't even close to the explosions. So to be fair, like, if you're at the show, there's probably a lot of this that looked really good, but the camera angles didn't really help. But I agree, the explosion looked cool, but it's just the fact that it was so clearly not even near the wrestlers. But it was still a pretty impressive pyrotechnic. So Kenny, So Omega lands a Onita-style powerbomb for a near fall later on. Kenny lands 2 V-triggers in the corner onto Moxley. Lands a 1-winged angel for a near fall. This is one of the coolest near falls I've ever seen. This was great. So he's pinning him, and, it's no disqualification. There aren't rope breaks. But while Kenny is pinning Jon Moxley, Jon puts his foot on a rope, and it causes an explosion to go off right in Kenny's face. So it broke the pin. That was like the coolest pin break you'll probably ever see in your life. Omega's blinded at this point. So Jon sets up his barbed wired bat. But at this point, we got a run in, which, for the end of such a big pay-per-view, run in, I don't know if I was too cool with it, but we got a run in from the Good Brothers. And Kenny picks up a barbed wire bat, wails Moxley with it, appears this freaking barbed wire bat was armed, and explodes on Moxley on impact. No pun intended. Good Brothers assist a 1-winged angel onto a chair for the win. So, to retain the AEW World Championship is Kenny Omega. So post-match, the heels are attacking Moxley. So basically, okay, so logically you would think, okay, the match is over, so we're not going to get the final big explosion. Just turn off the bombs, the show's over, it's done. But it appears the bombs are still armed, and I think they were trying to explain to us, we can't turn off the bomb. Like, okay, whatever. So Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers are basically stalling. They're just beating up Moxley, trying to kill time, because they have to get to exactly the 30-minute mark in order for this explosion to be triggered. So they're beating up Moxley. The Good Brothers handcuff Mox's hands behind his back and continue to beat his ass. Kenny's scraping Mox's face with a barbed wire bat, leaves him until the 1-minute countdown, so the heels all leave, leaving Moxley in the ring helpless, and so he's just down, cuffed. He's dead. This explosion's about to go off and fucking kill the guy. So who comes out? Who comes out but a real friend, a real life brother, Eddie Kingston, his lifelong rival and his lifelong best friend and brother. Eddie Kingston came out to save, not just save, but to sacrifice himself for Jon Moxley. So we're at 20 now. 20, 19, 18, 17. Kingston gets into the ring, lays his body over Jon Moxley's. 2, 1. Pew, pew, pew. Little sparklers. Literally. Like, just sparklers. Lex Luger sparklers. I was like, wait, where's Lex Luger? Why is his pyro going off? I guess, to be a little fair, you had these two big explosions, but once again, they just weren't even close to the ring. And so, okay, so the whole explosion spot was a dud. They failed to create an effective explosion. I think I did hear some backstage rumblings that it actually was a botch. This absolutely was not what was supposed to happen. That's not what they were going for. It unfortunately was. Oh yeah, and I completely agree with you again, All Elite Podcast. But yeah, they just completely botched this explosion, and they could have thought on their feet, and kind of saved themselves. But Eddie Kingston was selling as if he was dead, as if this explosion had killed him. He didn't move an inch for the rest of the show. These doctors come in and they start working on Eddie Kingston. Hey man, are you alive? Lex Luger's fireworks just went off. And, it was just like the most cringe-worthy, just the hardest thing to get through, watching this guy sell this little sparkler. The announcers kept acting like Jon Moxley was selling dead. He wasn't. Jon Moxley legit just woke up. Eddie Kingston is still selling death. But you see Jon Moxley starts moving around. He starts moving his head. His eyes are open. So he knew, like, fuck this shit. I'm not going to keep selling this. Like, nobody's falling for this. Eddie Kingston thought differently. He just kept selling it. And yeah, there you go. That's literally how the show went off the air. So, pretty damn disappointing. In the moment, I was definitely a little more riled up than I am now. I was almost about to say that this feels like Hell in a Cell 2019. The whole WWE, how the Hell in a Cell match ended in disqualification. I was like, this is almost that bad, but the difference being that WWE meant to do that. That was a real, royal, insulting screw-up, whereas this was a botch, so you can't really compare it that way, but what an underwhelming feeling, man. And then after the show, Jon Moxley actually cut a promo, yeah, he was basically just saying, he got a great idea. He's like, let's just blame this on Kenny Omega for building a shit, explosion rig. Because, we saw him in that factory that one time hammering away, building the explosives and stuff like that. So he basically just says, Kenny Omega can't build explosives worth of shit. Which is fine, and that's a fine way to try to cover up what just happened. But the thing is that you can't escape from is the fact that Eddie Kingston actually sold it as if he was dead. So they're gonna have to do some mental gymnastics to get around this to make this all make sense. They did a post-show scrum like they do for all their big shows. With Tony Khan. And Tony took the exact same route as Jon Moxley. Kenny Omega fucked up. He didn't build an effective explosion rig. So I guess we're just going to keep going. But the other thing, even further than that confuses me is that I pretty much, and I'm assuming all this stuff, none of this is really confirmed, but I'm pretty sure this was all a write-off for Jon Moxley. Because on February 26th, he had a match against Kenta at NJPW Strong where he surprisingly retained his IWGP United States Championship. I thought he was going to lose it that day because he can't really go to Japan and defend the title. So I thought they were going to give the title to Kenta and, there you go. You have your IWGP United States Championship back. But no, they retained it on Moxley. So what I was thinking is, okay, this match Jon Moxley's going to lose, which he did, and this is going to be a write-off, which on paper, this is a fucking great idea. Like, have Eddie Kingston try to save Moxley, but then it ends up killing both Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley. But you can't just write him off now with what happened here. Nobody would buy that. Like, Jon Moxley's gone now. For what reason? Again, though, I could be completely wrong, but I can't help but think that that's what this was, to write off Jon Moxley so he could go back to New Japan maybe for a little while. He also has a kid on the way. so if Moxley is still scheduled to like leave, which again I can't confirm, I haven't actually heard that. I'm just kind of assuming this because it all makes sense. They're gonna have to do a lot of explaining here, and hopefully again John Moxley can make it to Japan to defend that title because we don't need that title to just be hanging around for another year. He has to defend it or just freaking lose it. Um, but yeah, anyway, we could talk till we're blue in the face about what's going to come of this. I'm sure Atsushi Onita's somewhere shitting himself. Nah, but again, it wasn't bad. The work done in the match was fantastic. I said, John Moxley and Kenny Omega, they had a great death match. These guys are bleeding the fuck out. And that kind of also makes you feel worse about the finish here. It just didn't execute. They beat the living crap out of each other. They tore each other apart, and it unfortunately just had to end this way. So we'll see what happens. I'll be back this Wednesday to recap all of this. I didn't really catch too much of what will be happening then, other than the Chris Jericho and MJF little conference thing that's going to happen. I guess we're going to see Chris Jericho get kicked out of the Inner Circle. So please just don't forget to like and subscribe the stream. I'm glad you checked me out for your coverage of AEW Revolution 2021. As underwhelming as the show might have been, I think it had high highs. I loved the ladder match. I really liked the opening match as well. We have Christian now. I think that's a good thing. I think having Christian around is great. Did they overpromise? Maybe a little bit, perhaps, but it is what it is, and we're gonna move on. And we also got to see Sting's first match, and I thought it was awesome. Like, if I were to guess, like if you came to me and said, "Hey, after the show, you're gonna be reporting a complete disaster. Take a guess as to which match it's for," I would have probably said Sting and Darby Allin's match, but dude, it was awesome. And I'm really excited to see Sting return to the ring. No, not too much cinematic. Let's at least see one live match, because we know he could do it. But yeah, we'll just end it here, guys. Thank you very much for watching the Pierce the Canvas podcast. We'll be back this Wednesday for AEW Dynamite. Take care, y'all.